Yeah, Mark, your new piece was just invoked. Let's read some of it. Your first, by the way, for The Atlantic. It's titled, "Just Call Trump a Loser." In it, Mark writes this, quote, "Trump's bizarre and enduring hold over his party has made it verboten for many Republicans to even utter publicly the unpleasant fact of his defeat, something they will readily acknowledge in private. I caught up recently," writes Mark, "with several Trump-opposing Republican strategists and former associates of the president who argued this restraint should end. The best way for a Republican to depose Trump in 2024, they said, will be to call Trump a loser as early and as brutally as possible, and to keep pointing out the absurdity of treating a one-term, twice-impeached 75-year-old former president like a kingmaker and heir apparent."
Crazy.
Trump wasn't an ordinary election defeat either. Some nervy Republican challenger needs to remind everyone how rare it is for an incumbent president to lose re-election and remind the former president that he once called the person he lost to the worst presidential candidate in the history of presidential politics. Don't let him get away with that, the cabinet of critics urged. Abandon all deference. And don't forget to troll the troller. So, Mark, I'll let you expand on that piece a little bit, but in the context of what's just happened over the last week, which is that we have Kevin McCarthy on tape trashing Donald Trump, saying he was going to pursue his resignation or the 25th Amendment. And then when it's revealed in the new book by Alex Burns and Jonathan Martin, turning tail and running and making apologies to President Trump, going back to members of Congress he may have offended on those tapes and saying, "I'm sorry, can we all be friends? I love Donald Trump. I want to be Speaker of the House." So, in other words, the approach of going at Donald Trump seems to be not only one that's not effective, but one that most Republicans are terrified of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key word there is terrified. This is a two-step that is so numbingly familiar to everyone, which is, saying one thing in private about Donald Trump and saying something completely different about dear leader, when there's a microphone attached to you. It's not exactly a newsflash that politicians will say something a little bit different in private than in public. What's interesting about this era, certainly of republicanism, is the just yawning gap between what is known to be true and what can be safely uttered without triggering, the leader in exile down at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, I think in some ways we're all talking about the same thing, which is, as Jennifer said, government by gaslight. I mean, they're trying to sort of throw out these real truths. That is, like, the fact that it exists in Donald Trump's head that he actually won the election has now become the talking point for the Republican Party that people have to try to factually justify. I mean, essentially, it's about calling out dirty little secrets, whether you are a state rep somewhere saying, "Hey, look, by the way, this is not about these bogus issues you're talking about. It's about, like, paving roads and balancing budgets." Let's be real here. It's really hard to lose a re-election campaign if you're Donald Trump. I don't know why you're asking for more of this. And this is Republicans talking to Republicans, and it makes them uncomfortable. It makes the president uncomfortable. It makes him angry. It drives him nuts. It has an added benefit. And, look, I am a big advocate for this, not as someone who is, giving strategic advice to anyone, but as someone who likes to air truths like this and who thinks it's healthy for parties, no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, to speak in the realm of reality.
Mark, it's interesting, as you've suggested, they do call him a loser. Republicans do call him a loser when the camera's not on. They understand that this is the first guy since Herbert Hoover, first one-term president since Herbert Hoover, to lose the White House, to lose the House of Representatives, to lose the United States Senate. They all know Democrats got to put somebody new on the Supreme Court because of what Donald Trump did in Georgia. He single-handedly destroyed Republicans' chances of maintaining the Senate by what he did in Georgia. He's doing it again with Herschel Walker. He's chosen the wrong person again in the Georgia gubernatorial race. I guess the question is this a strategy, since Republicans aren't going to implement it, that the Democrats just, need to just do it? And look at this. Look at this. For people going, "Oh, he's the kingmaker in the Republican Party." Oh, is he really? There's nobody that Donald Trump hated more than Brian Kemp. He repeatedly has bashed Brian Kemp, just completely trashed him because Brian Kemp wouldn't repeat the lies. One of the Trumpiest people, one of the Trumpiest Republicans in elected office until he was asked to lie about a presidential election by Donald Trump, and he refused to do it. And he's getting absolutely crushed in Georgia, which, you know, Georgia's kind of the new Florida. It's Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. It's a critical state in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I think Democrats would have to do so differently. I mean, I think Republicans can sort of speak as fellow team members here. They can say, look, you know, Republicans have basically underperformed in every election since 2016, you know, compared to their earlier ones. I mean, I think Trump, when he's on the ballot, he actually brings a lot of base out to vote, which was helpful to a lot of congressional candidates, especially in 2020. But the fact is, I mean, Trump has been bad for Republicans getting elected down ballot.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, he has juiced turnout in some cases, but they've been pretty, I mean, consistent in sort of looking at numbers that Republicans have gotten. And look, every time there's a Brian Kemp-like poll and, you know, conceivably result going forward, that rap sheet and that invincibility is going to just sort of continue to sort of entrench itself next to Trump. And I think if Democrats are going to go after him, you know, the loserness has to expand into kind of a national conversation, which is, look, he said he was going to build a wall. He didn't build a wall. He said he was going to balance the budget immediately. He didn't do it. If you don't like Obamacare, you still have Obamacare.
Right.
Look, if you voted for him to get, I mean, you can just go through the list. I mean, Biden used to say it all the time.
Yeah, this is like having an abusive partner. These Republicans and Trump. And Trump is their abusive partner. And the question is, when are, you know, sometimes there's that moment when you're like, no more. I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving.